Okay, so I just tried to do a video on this and it ended up being 17 minutes long, which is ridiculous because it should only be 5. So I'm going to try this again without all of my rambling in between. But ultimately, I'm just going to address the topic of pricing your home correctly. I know that this is a big frustration on both the selling end and the representation end as the realtor, because it can become a real point of conflict between both the seller and their agent. So I do want to just clarify, whether you're an agent or a seller, that you do need to have a really firm understanding on how the price plays into the whole selling process. So anyway, the reason that pricing your home is so important, like pricing it right, is that when you put it into the MLS, in the first week you're going to see probably the peak in your number of views versus the rest of the time it's in the MLS. So if you have it priced correctly in that first peak week, you're really going to see an increase in the number of showings you have, the higher interest you have, and you'll really increase your likelihood of getting an offer just in that first week, if not in the second. So pricing it right at the starting gate is crucial if you want to get it off your hands fast. Determining your price can be done by looking at comparables in the area. So try and keep it within a 1 mile radius. Most of the time an agent will do this for you, but if you're a seller selling as a for sale by owner, this is something that you need to do. Don't let those emotions you have or the memories you have in your home influence the price that you list at. So really get out, look at comparable properties, try and keep it within a 1 mile radius. Try and keep the square footage 300 on either side. Tops, you want to keep it in the same age bracket because that'll make a really big difference. So 0 to 1, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 20, so on and so forth. Try and keep it in that same age bracket, because people definitely do look at that. Each bracket you get older, they're automatically going to start calculating the costs to repair things or change things out. Other things that can really fluctuate from the comparable in your home is the comparable fully renovated, or is your home fully renovated? Look at renovation costs. How much would it cost to make your home look like theirs or make their home look like yours, and then either deduct that or add that onto the actual sales price of the comparable property. Find the average price per square foot for your type of home, your age of home in that location, and multiply that by the difference between the comparable square footage and your square footage. Add or deduct that to the actual sales price of the comparable. So go through and do this with about 10 comparable properties. Make sure they are, like I said, in a 1 mile radius or at least in the same location, because you'll see a big difference. Here in Boise, you see a huge difference. The north end, a little tiny bungalow is going to sell for something that a 4-bedroom whatnot is selling for over in West Boise. So you're going to see a huge difference just in the location. So really know your sides of town and kind of how the price points are going to differ, and then keep your comparables in your area. So that's kind of on how to decide on your price. Now, once you've gotten kind of that average, you've got a span of the low side and the high side of listing throughout those comparables, now you need to decide what is more important to you. Would you rather have your home off the market fast, or would you rather ultimately walk away with more money? Because the higher price you choose, the longer it's going to sit on market. So if you go to the top of your price point, even though it's still going to be an understandable price point for your property, if you keep it within those comparable numbers, you are going to prolong your time on market, versus going with a lower price point or even just right in the middle. You're going to see a pretty drastic decrease in the time it's on market, because people are going to nab it up if it's in the lower price point. So that's kind of the benefit. The other thing to keep in mind is that you can price it on the high point, and you can have a buyer that's willing to pay that. But if all of the comparables are saying it's not worth that, because the appraiser is going to look at probably the same comparables that you'll use. So unless you have a very high demand, I mean, if you've got 5, 6 offers in on it, the appraiser is mostly just going to go with the comparable properties, which, like I said, will probably be the same that you used. go off those, come up with your appraisal value, and then your buyer's probably not going to be able to fund it past that appraisal value. So you're going to have to drop your sales price. So ultimately, you can ask for a lot more and still walk away with what the comparables say it's worth. So keep that in mind when you're setting that price. Is you could prolong your time on market and be on market for 3.5 months and end up selling for the bottom line dollar that you could have had it off market in a week for. So keep it in mind. If you have less than 5 views in the first week, evaluate dropping your price. I think if you've got, if you've got 3 views, that's pretty good, but you should have an offer out of those 3. Especially in Boise, and I know that that's going to change depending on the season, but if you're in Boise right now in this early summer and you're not having a bite on it pretty fast within the first week or 2, you're not having an offer come in, you really need to evaluate your price point. So knowing your market, if you know that things are staying on market longer, then you can take a little bit longer to adjust that price. But if you're in a high demand market and your house stays on the market longer than a week or 2, honestly, you need to reevaluate it. Because especially if you're going into that 3rd, 4th week, your number of visits and views is going to start declining drastically. So you really want to make sure that before you see that huge drop in visitors, you drop the price and respike the interest into your house rather than letting it fall off the radar, because then nobody's really going to care that you drop the price that much. So try and keep your price up to date, reevaluate it. If your realtor recommends dropping the price, please listen to them. Don't get angry at them. Don't feel like they're trying to jip you. If we tell you to drop your price, we're making less money. So we're not going to recommend it unless it actually is for your best interest. And I don't get why sellers feel like we're trying to screw them over. Because honestly, as a listing agent, you don't have, the amount of time it's on market, yeah, it's prolonging the amount of time before you get paid. But it's not out of laziness, because we don't typically have to go do the showings. The buyer's agents are doing most of that. I mean, once it's sat on market for about 3 weeks, our job really kind of slows down. So it's not out of laziness. It's not out of us wanting to wipe our hands of you. It's out of us saying, okay, we want to serve you the best that we can, and right now the price we have it at is not working. So in your best interest, I'm going to recommend dropping the price. And yes, it's a pay cut to us, so we're not doing it out of anything other than looking out for your best interest. So please keep that in mind. And definitely take into account what your realtor says when first determining that price, because they're an unbiased third party. So you may walk up and see the front yard where your kids grew up, or the flower beds that you worked so hard to plant. And as a realtor, we'll say, okay, but from a third party's point of view, I see a lot of weeds, a lot of maintenance that's going to have to go into this yard, or whatever it may be. Not that we're always going to hate on your property, because a lot of times we end up loving it. But anyway, I'm rambling again. Trust your realtor, and if you're not working with a realtor, make sure you really lay down that bias and try and see it from a buyer's point of view. Try and see it as a home that you know nothing about. If you were a buyer looking, what would you want done? And what does that add up to as far as price? Like coming in, would you say it needs new cabinets? All of those things, really try and incorporate those into your price. So that's basically all I have to say on pricing, and I kept it under 17 minutes this time, so welcome for that. I will be back next week with another video. I'm not sure on my topic yet, but be sure to leave any comments if you have any questions or any